everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor the Art Impressions Way, and this week's project is a stone wall, and I'm going to show you how to create this. We're actually going to make this from the wall texture set. So this one right here, we're going to create that wall using this stamp. We're also going to use the small little watering can from the Wishing Well set, so this one. And then out of the Foliage set 2, we're going to use this little ivy right here, just one. And then in the mini flower set, 2 images in here. So this one right here and this long stem right here. But remember, you can use any of your long stems. All of these things are interchangeable, so feel free to use what you have. In the branches set, this small one right here. And that is going to create this little image with this stone wall. So I think you're really going to enjoy this project. Okay, so let's get going. We are going to start out by inking that stone, the stone wall texture. So actually what I've done is turn it upside down. So this is actually the way that it looks, but I've turned it upside down, and we're going to use this part here, and we're going to go right to this line here. So about exactly half of it is what we're going to use. So we're going to ink this up in 2 colors. We're going to use the African Violet and the Sepia. So we're going to do the African Violet first, and we don't want too much color on this image, so I want to stamp it off first. So I'm going to ink it up with both colors, and then I'm going to stamp it off onto a piece of scrap paper. So now that I've got it inked up, I'm going to stamp it off just like that, and I'm going to take off some of this area here. So this side here on the right, we're going to take off part of that, and then I'm going to stamp it right into the middle of my paper. So just like this, very light. So don't over ink it, and don't add too much pressure on here. So now I'm going to clean it off, and I'm going to do it again because I want these to match. So I don't want too much ink on here. And I'm going to turn it upside down again and just ink about half, and then hit it with the sepia. So 2 colors. And then I'm going to stamp it off again, just like I did the first time. So just like that. And I'm going to use my positioner now to make sure that I get them lined up next to each other. So just like this. I'm going to place it right here. And I'm going to do the same thing again with the side, only this time I'm going to take off the opposite side because I kind of want to create this area in here where there's not too many dark lines because we want to add some foliage in there. So I'm going to stamp it a little farther over. So about here looks pretty good. And then I'm going to remove that acrylic plate. And then I'm going to take off this section here. So this side, and then huff on it, and then stamp it right into the corner. Okay, so that looks pretty good. That's exactly what I want, this little stone wall. You could also use this as a column and put a little pot on the top. So use your imagination with these things. They're very, very versatile, and they're made to have multiple purposes. So don't be afraid to try new things with these. So the next thing we're going to do is dip our brush in water and begin to pull this color out of the lines. So we're just going to go like this and drag this color out. You can see there will be a mix of color in here. We're just going to kind of make this pretty light. And just kind of work your way around. Pull that color out of the lines, just like this. If you start getting too much color on your brush, just clean it off and pinch it off again and just continue on here. So just like this, you can see how this is starting to make all these little stones look 3-dimensional. And you know, we kind of want to drag some of this color over to the center. We want to see that it's an entire stone wall, so not 2 separate columns. So we do want to see that. So we want to, you know, show parts of these stones. But we're leaving this light area because we want to stamp that foliage in there, foliage and flowers. Okay, so now I'm going to take my sepia, and I'm just going to create a few more stones in between. And really to do that is you're just kind of connecting the corners. So just like this. So just take a few little places in here and connect some of these corners together and just create a few more stones. Just add lines. Don't stress out about this. There's nothing to this. Remember, it's just the idea of things. And all we're doing is creating a little more of a dense area. And we're just doing that by adding some lines in here. So just kind of work your way around just like this. Okay, once you've got that done, dip your brush again in water and pinch it off and work your way around these now. And pull some of this color now into your image. Just kind of drag it over. You're going to soften these lines all up and see that sepia in there. It's going to create a little more color contrast. And don't be afraid to add lots of color into these stones. You know, the more that you play with these, you know, the more, I think the bolder you get to try new things. That's the fun thing about it. And you know, they never turn out the same. They're always different. Mine are too. I could do the same project a dozen times and every time it's going to be different. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go on to the next step, and that's to add some foliage into here. So I've chosen the little ivy, this little ivy right here. But, you know, feel free to use whatever foliages that you have. They're all going to work. So this is the number 72 pine green, and I'm just going to ink this up and just add some of this foliage in here. A little bit to each side. And then I'm going to continue over to this side and add some in over here. And just a few more over into this section. And go ahead and add water. So dip your brush in water, pinch it off, and just soften those lines. Don't be afraid to pull that color out from that stone wall into your foliage. And drag some of this color now down into the ground. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to add some little blooms in here now, and I'm going to do that with that little long stem from the mini flower set. And I'm just going to ink the little blooms now. This is the number 17 steel blue, and I'm using the 15 green now. So 15 green, and I'm just going to ink the stem. And just get this in here a few times. And I'm going to do it again. Ink it up. So this is the green and the steel blue. And just get that in there a bunch of times. And then you don't need to add any water now to the stems. Just hit those little blooms. This is so subtle. So cute. And use whatever blooms you have. So there's lots and lots of options with these. I'm just giving you the idea. So you can for sure take it from here. Okay, so let's put that little watering can on here. And I'm going to use my positioner. I want to make sure that I get it in the right place. And I also want to cut this down a little bit. So let me stamp it on here and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to ink this now in sepia. So this is just one color, sepia. And I'm going to stamp that into the corner, so just like that. And now I can see exactly where I want to put it. And I think that's a little too tall for this composition, so I'm going to cut that down. And I'm going to drop this down and make a small watering can. So just a little short one. So about here. So I'm going to place my positioner back right here, and I'm just going to cover that stone area. And I can do that with a little piece of masking tape. And I can just place this right over the top of the wall here. So that will cover up that area. And now I can just huff on this and stamp this back into the corner. So now I've got a little short watering can that I think fits better up here. It's a little better size, And all I need to do now is draw a line across the bottom. And I'm finished with that, and I drew that line with the sepia. So now I can pull the color out of the lines just like I would normally and drag this over to the center. Remember to leave that little highlight, and especially on the top. Even if these little images are small, it's really, really important to do those things. It makes a huge, huge difference. And I'm going to add a little sepia now to my palette and just put a little more color in here underneath this little handle. That's going to be really dark under there. And add a little bit of color to the sides. So I'm going to just pinch my brush off to make sure that I don't get this too dark, and just drag that color over to the center. And you can add a few little details in here. So you can draw a little line down the center, put a few little details in here, maybe down under here as well, and actually really darken in where that handle is. Super easy. And that looks pretty good. So we've got our little watering can on there. So let's go ahead and add a few more details in here. Some little tiny flowers like this one. And I'm just going to use the, the violet. So that is the, let me find that one, the number 8. And that is this one, number 8. And I'm just going to ink these tiny little dots. And you just kind of want to ink it once and walk it across. Just really, really tiny, very subtle. And I think that's probably all we need to have in here. That looks good. And let's add a little sky now to our composition. And this is the number 17 steel blue. So I'm going to take some of this color now and just brush in a little bit of this sky area. Just a little bit. You don't have to overdo it with this. Just the idea of it. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to take a little bit of this now, the sepia, and just add a little of this ground in here. You can add more grass to the bottom. You can add different colors in here to show a sandy, sandy ground. There's lots of different ways that you can complete this image. So I'm going to show you the easiest way. And that is just to brush a little bit of color in here. And add, you can add some of this dark color into these little cracks, where it would be the darkest in these stones. And here, just like this. So fun and so easy. This is such an easy little project. Let's add a few little dots in here, just to give the idea of a little sandy area. And one more thing, let's add a little accent. This is that little branch. So let's add this to the block. And I'm inking this now with the pine green, but you could use the sepia with this too. And maybe just one more little thing up there like that. So the last thing to do is to sign and date. Put it on a card or put it in a frame and give it away to someone. You are going to make their day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and I will see you all next week.